Good morning. How's it going? Hope this finds you really well and staying warm for this December day. That's why I think it's jammy weather, right? I've been seeing a lot of pajamas pop up in my Instagram feed and in my email. And I had them on the calendar, I think, for last week. So I figured, hey, I actually need a pair of jammy pants. Because remember when I made the Rita shirt dress and I was like, I'm going to make this into a shirt. And I did. And then I looked at it and I was like, that kind of looks like a pajama top, which is, this is it right here. I don't know why. It just, like, even my friend came by after the stream and she was like, no, it's fine. And then I put it on. She goes, oh, yeah, that looks like a jammy top. So this is the Rita shirt the Rita shirt dress, which I made in that really amazing neon slub chambray from my Needle Sharp box. I love that dress. It was hard for me not to wear it today. It's really comfortable. And it just sits really nicely. It's long, so I stay warm. I can just wear a little sweater over it. The only failing of it that I cannot believe I didn't notice was that it doesn't have pockets for my hands to go into. It has like breast pockets, but that's it. So anyway, this was the shirt I made of the from the Rita shirt dress, and it totally looks like a jammy top, don't you guys think? So I'm going to do a few stitchings on this to make it actually a jammy top, like stitch down the facing so that it doesn't ever need ironing, because I'm not going to iron my pajamas. I don't know about you, but I'm not down for that. And I think I'm going to pop out the edge stitching of the cuff and then put piping behind there and kind of fake that I intended this in the first place. So, you know, I'll do that after I make these pants. These pants are pretty simple. I'm doing the view that does have the piping because I figure for anyone who really wants to make themselves a traditional set of pajamas could follow along with that. I'll try and follow the directions as closely as possible. I'm making a view view B, with the one with the piping. I'm making the pajama bottoms today. And just in case you have this pattern, note that the views on the back of the envelope, that the letter doesn't match the one on the front of the instruction book. And I was actually going by this when I cut it out, and that's how I noticed it. It must not be an issue because most people just probably follow the envelope and the pattern pieces, but for some reason I was like, what's going on here? So I noticed it. So anyway, how are you guys doing? What are you guys working on? This week went by so fast. I did get a puppy on Sunday, and between that and just trying to help out my family where I can and stay on top of that, and then also just, you know, having a teenager and trying to be a responsible person in the world. This week went by really fast. Plus the holidays. I haven't even really shopped much. I don't know about you guys. So, we're not like big Christmas celebrators, but we do something. I think, you know, once you have a kiddo, that kind of makes it a little bit more fun. So, all right. So I'm going to start with the front and the pockets. So here's my matching fabric. Let's see if I can find my pockets, because I just had them sitting right here. Because you know me, I always tend to drop things as soon as I need them. And then I'm looking for them in front of you, which is really annoying, by the way. Oh, they're right here. Okay, I did drop them. Okay. There's so much floral fabric sitting here. Hi, Carol. You're working on PJs too? Are they their like little kid pajamas? Like when I was a kid, my mom really liked us to open pajamas on Christmas Eve, because she really wanted us to wake up in nice jammies for the pictures, you know, like opening gifts and things like that. And so the tradition in my family is that that's what you open on Christmas Eve, is that you open pajamas. And they're always wrapped in white tissue so you know which one it is under the tree. So that is, I've tried to keep that up. I made a little cheat sheet just because thumbing through the instruction book, you know, might be a little bit cumbersome for you guys in front of you, you know. All right, so it does have a faux fly. I think I'm going to round it. I was just going to go the traditional route. They say you can do either, and then I decided I will just because, I don't know, I just really like organic lines. Oh, toddler. Oh my gosh, those are going to be really cute. Okay, so I'm going to do this with French seams as well because it's really not a whole lot of seams. So you guys have to remind me, don't sew them backwards because I tend to always do that. Okay, so let's see. I'm going to, oh, the floral fabric just all blends in. It's just like a pile of pieces over here. Got my machine on? Yeah, I got my machine on. All right, so I think all the seam allowances are 5/8. I'm going to have trouble remembering that, but, you know. Oops, I'm already kind of a little under. It's so hard for me to go above a 1/2 inch. I'm just trying to be careful not to stretch that right there because that is an angle, so it's on the bias. It'll be kind of stretchy. I'm going to trim that, I think, a little bit. Trim it down. And this just sews to the or turns to the inside and then lines up like that, and then you have a nice hip pocket like that. So I'm going to sew these backwards and then turn it so that it's enclosed. Hi Ida, how are you doing? And I'm not going to follow seam allowance for that because it's just the depth of the pocket, and I don't mind deeper pockets. I love that these pajamas have pockets. I mean, don't you hate it when you're like carrying your bowl of ice cream and your glasses and a napkin and, you know, your glass of water? I'm trying to decide if I want to understitch or top stitch the pocket opening, and I think actually I'm going to understitch it. So I'm going to press the seam allowances towards the pocket bag. Just like that. And then I'm going to encase this. Why not? It'll just bug me if there's like little threads that peek out, you know. It's just the bottom of my pocket. I did lose a little pocket depth, but that's okay. All right, so now the pocket is fully finished. See if I can line it up. It's being all fussy. We'll line it up from the inside. See that? Okay, I'm gonna line this up just like this. Line it up along the side seam there. Nice and flat, and I'm gonna stitch that down. And along the top here. And then we can do the other side, and our fronts are ready. And just like that, I have a hip pocket. Oop. Oh, that's a nice size. Ooh, for yourself? That's awesome. I love hearing that. You're talking my language. The bodice sloper thing, yeah. I have one of those too. And I kind of you know, struggle with like, should I work on things made from that in front of you guys, because it's not like everyone can sew those items, you know, because they're my things. So but I have my own personal block, and it's changed over the years, you know, as I've gotten older or whatever, my body's changed. So recently I updated it, and I haven't sewn anything in my new sloper because I've just been working from home sewing patterns. But they're so handy to have, even if you don't use them for a, you know, a design that you create. They're such a great tool to have that you can just lay on a home sewing pattern. You love to see me work on it? Okay, yeah, I mean, mine's just sitting right down here. I have to sew up another sample in it. I think it's one of the, it's like something, I think once you've had one of them, or it's like the language you speak, you know, that's kind of how I feel about my sloper, is that I can't really do anything without it. You know what I mean? I have to have one at all times. I was thinking about that, you know, I was like, I was at the fabric store yesterday, And someone, she's so much fun. She's a quilter, and she's been trying to get into garment sewing, bag sewing, and she's doing awesome. And she's actually told me about a couple of people out there that make videos for their patterns, and I thought, oh, that's really clever, you know. And but she's been really inspired to like make more clothing, and she made a dress the other day, and she used a woven pattern and made it out of knit, which you can do. You just have to like kind of tread carefully. You know, you got to make sure that you don't end up with something too big, because knits typically have negative ease for their pattern piece, and wovens have positive ease. So you could end up, you'd have to make a smaller size and then adjust it accordingly. Well, she made a pretty funny mistake on it. And I was just thinking about it, because I love that she shared it and she wasn't too like, oh my God, can you believe this silly thing I did? Because like I've done some really, really silly things myself, and so I really appreciated that. And I was just thinking again, like just how crazy of a hobby this is, you know, because you don't really get to sew 15 of them and get it perfect before you make the one for you. It's just too expensive to do that. And a sloper does help, you know, it's not like, it's not the solution to all your issues, but it can help a lot. Okay, so I'm going to put my fake fly on, or I guess, I don't know, I'm not going to put it on. It's like built into it. I am going to turn this into a little bit of a curve. And I'm going to try something a little different than the instructions, because I want this edge to be finished on the inside of the pants and not leave it raw. And I'm not going to use my serger. So they suggest that you could bind it, which you know I'm a huge fan of, but I don't think everybody's a huge fan of that. And I also don't want any extra bulk. So like that's all I did to round it. Just because if I could have left that there and then top stitched it in a curve, but then it would have had this little like corner flapping around. Yeah, exactly, Carol. I know. It's like the sloper's really great, because once you find your 0-0 point on that and you can line it up, like you'll know where your armhole depth is, your neck and shoulder, that whole area, like all that upper part. Yeah, well, you know, that's how it is, Ida, right? I mean, it's great because it's like you did it on that, right? You didn't do it on something nice. And then you'll have that really awesome little thing to work with. Okay, so, well, let me think about this. I think I'm going to sew, let's see, I think I have to do this wrong sides together. So I'm just going to sew a little bit of a seam here, and then turn it, and then pretend like I didn't do it, okay? So just bear with me here. I'm going to experiment. And then I'll carry on like they suggest. I'm not sure how far I need to go, so I'm just going to go just past that little edge there. I'm going to clip into this, take a chance that I know what I'm doing here. Sometimes I don't, I know. Okay, so now I can sew this right sides together. Oh yeah, so I need to clip that. Okay, that's I can do that. Right there. Okay. Of course I need to clip that. Of course. Okay. So this isn't something where the this shows on the outside. It's just the wrong side on the inside of the garment, right? So I'm going to press this, and then once I top stitch it down, it'll stay to the inside with a nice finished edge. I didn't have to bind it. It didn't add any bulk. Don't have to overlock it. I really hate overlocking the front fly. I don't know about you guys, but it is one of those areas that I feel like I wish someone would tell me how to do it, you know, because my serger comes around and the blade wants to go right into the pants. And you do have like a clip line, a little dot right here that you clip to, but you don't want your serger doing that clip. You need to do that clip. So, all right, and so I think I can also do this as a French seam still, but I may be stretching. I may be stretching here, so let's see. We're gonna learn on my watch here. So I'm going to do a 1/4 inch seam. And then I'm going to do a 5/8 inch seam. Like that. Okay, let me iron this. I'll iron the French seam as well. So I think this is going to work really well, actually. The only thing that's not going to work is the clip. So I may have to clip that right through my French seam. And then I'm going to see what happens. So that may be the only failing of this. All right, so I need a basting stitch along the fly, just like you do on the ginger jeans. I'm looking at the line up here as I whack my finger with my presser foot. Okay, so I'm not going to back stitch. I'm going to put a long basting stitch. I'm going to start at that notch, and I'm going to come all the way down. And see, there's no seam allowance in here right now. I can feel it, like it's totally empty there. And I'm going to pick this back up and put a back stitch right here. And then I'm going to continue around and encase my raw edge there. I'm going to put it back to the medium stitch length, back stitch right here, really sturdily. Try and get all of that raw edge in there, like that. And I will probably, let's see, I'm pretty sure I'm going to have to clip that. Oh shoot, I just unthreaded my needle. You know how I feel about that. So what's the weather like where you guys are? I don't know where some of you live. It's a fake fly, exactly, Ida. So that's why I can experiment like this. These are the only pieces for it. Isn't it funny how jammies have a fake fly? Like, why not just make them pull on bottoms? It's like so funny how we're trying to make the fly so classy. I actually don't know if I really need to clip that. I'm not going to clip it quite yet. I am going to top stitch it now. And does it go to the, oh, it shows it going to the, that way. Yeah, I guess that's the way it goes, huh? That's so funny. Wait, no. Yeah, that is the way it goes. Okay. No. That is not the way it goes. That's so funny that they have it on this side. I find this really funny just because Closet Case made the ginger jeans, and this must be like a jammy thing that you always put the fly on this side or something. I don't know. I was really surprised. I ended up cutting out a size 16 in these. That's I wear a size 10 in the ginger jeans. Ooh, it is, Helen. That sounds so cozy though. It's like that where I used to live in Humboldt County, which is like Northern California on the coast. It's always like kind of rainy and dark and cozy there. You drink a lot more coffee and hot cocoa there year round. So, all right, I'm going to follow the directions and stitch my fly on this side. And I'm just going to come around, follow my curve. I can feel it in here. I'm going to do a fake bar tack right there. They're just jammies. That curve is a little, it's okay. All right, so I'm going to take out this basting stitch now. Right here. What are you sewing, Helen? Oh, it's mid-20s. Yeah. You know, my sister and her husband used to be stationed in Chicago and in the Navy, and they were really close to the lake. And I visited them, and, you know, I've grown up in California, and I've lived near the coast and on the coast off and on all my life. And it was so awesome to see that lake and see that it is kind of like an ocean. Like there's waves on a lake. Like it was mind-boggling to me. I felt like I was at the beach, like at the ocean, and I am like, you know, it's like how over the course of being at the beach, you know, eventually you touch your hand to your mouth or whatever. I was expecting salt. There was no salt. It really shocked me, and it reminded me that I was not at the ocean because that lake is so big you can't see the shore, so it looks like you're looking out onto open water. Ooh, God, everywhere seems so much cozier than here. That sounds so nice, Olivia. We don't really get snow here. I mean, it's not typical like California weather, like what you see in TV, you know, but it's 1 degree Celsius. You wear, oh, nice. Yeah, that's what I miss, Ida, is wearing all my hand knits. I wore a scarf today, but I thought that was a little ambitious for the stream because I'll get, you know, a little bit warm. All right, I'm just getting rid of my basting stitch here. And there we go. I don't really like my curve there, and I might fix it. You know, I don't like having a extra back stitch, but I'm going to fix it because I don't really like it. I shouldn't have stopped sewing right there to turn, but I was feeling and talking and you know the rest. So when I take out a seam, I always go to the other side and take the rest of it out. It'll just look nicer. All right. This will just look like the, you know, like the back stitch or the tack, right? All right, I'm going to not stop. I'm going to keep going. Much smoother. Yeah, I'm happy I did that. It looks way better. Okay, so now I have my fly. I actually don't think I need to clip that on the inside. And look how nice and clean that is. Super clean. I wish I could recommend this as like a good starter for doing like a fly on a pair of jeans, but yeah, exactly, Carol. I know, that was really cool. And then they were there for one of those really epic winters like a few years ago. And they went and looked at it because the waves froze on the, I was just like, I was floored, you know, Californian. Okay, so here is my front. These look kind of big, not gonna lie. I measured them really closely. I looked at, there wasn't a lot of finished measurements for the pant, only a hip, and there's no hip line drawn on the pattern piece, so I kind of had to guess where it was, and that's fine, that's accurate enough. But I couldn't really tell, and I actually held them up to my jammies to tell, but my jammies are like sewn and the elastics in them, so they're like scrunched up here, so, you know. All right, so let's see. Now we just put the backs to the fronts. Oh, we're going to do the back fly or back rise first, and we're going to do a French seam. So I'm just going to leave it wrong sides together. I'm going to sew it 1/4 of an inch first. I have some really nice plaid flannel, and I was like, ooh, maybe I'll make some other jammy bottoms in that. And maybe, if you guys want, I will do the Carolyn pajamas top. I can do that on Saturday. And I'll just do it in a solid fabric to match. I don't have enough plaid for a top, but that's okay. I don't mind it not matching perfectly. Okay, so now I'm going to do my other French seam. It's so funny. I never used to sew French seams until the live stream. Now I do them all the time, and I actually really like them. I used to think that's a little overkill, isn't it? I totally know the error of my thinking now. It's so quick, and you get such a nice finish. If you know they're going to fit, you might as well. I'm hoping this will fit, right? They look a little big. They look a lot big. I may have to compare these to my pants, but I measured them. I just can't believe, let me see. I'm going to hold them up. I guess. Yeah, these seem like a little bit bigger. All right, so let's sew the outer seam and the inseam now. So we're gonna put right sides together. I'm gonna do the side seam here. I don't want them to be too big. I don't like sloppy, you know? So 1/4" seam. Once I get it going, I'm going to put my pants up on the table here so they're not pulling on me. And I'm going to line them up a little bit better. I know I don't use pins, but this is how I do it. I kind of get it going, and then I line it all up, and then I keep going. If you cut things well and the pattern's good, it should all line up, and it should stay the way you've laid it out to sew. The only time we have trouble lining things up is if we didn't do the best job cutting. I'm totally guilty of that. Or maybe we sewed something kind of off early on, and so now things aren't lining up. I'm just trimming this because these little like threads, those are the things that poke out in a French seam, you know, through the nice seam, through the last seam, and I don't want that. All right. Jammies are a great thing to make for me because I don't need a ton of clothes, and that is the one struggle I'm having with the stream, is that I really don't want to keep making things for me, but at the same time it's hard to make things for other people because it's hard enough to fit ourselves, right? Kids are pretty easy because they're like little potatoes, and you just need to know approximate age, height, weight, you know, that kind of thing. They don't have quite the number of contours and things that we have to deal with quite yet, so they can be a little bit easier to deal with. I don't care if that stitching shows of the pocket tacking because it's going to get encased in my last seam. My final French seam. I'm really looking forward to doing the piping in these, and I will tell you I am cheating a little bit with the piping, and that I'm not actually putting cord in there because I don't have any, but you might actually appreciate the way I'm going to do it. So I'm just going to fold over bias. I'm not a big fan of piping, I'll be honest there. I like the way it looks. I don't like the cord for some reason. I don't know why. I think it's a funny thing. It reminds me of upholstery, and I worked in an upholstery shop. Oops, I trimmed that a little too close. I worked in an upholstery shop while I was going to college, to fashion school. Not funny. And we specialized in marine upholstery, like for boats. Really nice boats. Totally different world. Okay, so let's see here. I'm going to stagger my crotch seams because of the French seam makes it a little bulkier, and I really don't want that bulk, like, you know, to be down there. My little shawl is really tiny. It's a nice fast knit though, and it's cute. All right, so for the inseam, I know that there's some easing between the notches, which are about the knee. It's the shorten and lengthen point of the pattern. There's a notch there. It's kind of hard to see. Because I read the instructions, I knew that there was a notch there, and that you ease between them through, like, from knee to knee. It's probably also why I had that little bit of issue on my ginger jeans. I totally forgot they like to do it that way. Okay, so I'm getting to my notches right there, and here's my crotch seam. It doesn't really look like I need to ease very much. I'm going to look to see if one of these is going one way or the other yet. So the front is going that way. Okay, so I need to push the front this way and the back this way, just like that. I'm going to hold that there, and then I'm going to let it ease if it needs to. My notch is probably not going to get completely enclosed. I don't know why it's so deep. That was not hard to ease at all. It was barely anything. No problem. I didn't even need pins. So maybe my ginger jeans, maybe that wasn't it. Maybe that one of them was a little bit off grain. Because I definitely had a little bit of torquing. Maybe it was just the fabric. It could have just been the quality of the fabric. I thought it was pretty good quality, but then I couldn't tell if it was the one I had bought, where I'd bought that one. You know what I mean? Okay, so I'm just going to look this over, trim it down to a 1/4 inch or even. I have good news about that closet organizer pattern that you guys have probably all forgotten about. I made so much progress on it all of a sudden, and I like the way it looks finally. It was really bugging me that it didn't look very polished because, you know, I'm not a graphic artist. I have passable skills. I know I have, you know, I'm able to do certain things, like, but I don't have graphic skills at all to speak of. And I wanted it to look, you know, even though it's a free pattern, I still wanted it to look a certain way. And I finally got a format and like a template, and it looks so much better. Getting all these little hairs here. I'm barely cutting anything. I'm just making sure I'm cutting off all these little extra threads poking out, because that's what's going to poke out on my last pass, and I don't want them to. And I don't want to accidentally do a bigger seam allowance than I need, because I'm trying to encase something that feels a little bit beyond what I needed. You know, like if my first pass was a little bit bigger than a 1/4 inch, and I need to make sure I enclose that, then my seam allowance gets a little bigger. All right, so I'm going to do my inseam first. It's helpful when you're doing French seams to go back and press that seam open with an iron. When I say press, I mean iron. Press that seam open and then press it like this. It'll actually be really easy to do that once you've pressed the seam open. And it would be easy to do in steps rather than the way I'm doing it here. So I did the inseam, I did the outseam, then the inseam. I'm doing this all at once just so that I don't have to iron with my back to you for 10 minutes. I'm just going to be a little bit careful as I sew it. I'm going to roll it to the edge there, and then I pull on it to get it right on the edge, like that. So I'm just kind of sliding it to my fingers. This fabric's kind of sticky, so it doesn't want to do it very well. Once I get it right on the edge, then I pull both top and bottom. Keep it there. When you go through this juncture here at the crotch rise, same thing. It's not that thick. Your home sewing machine's no problem to go through that. Unless yours is sensitive, then just go slow. You don't need a serger to sew these, which is really nice, and you'll get such a nice looking inside of your pants. Okay, I need to hold it right there at the center, and then I'll pick it back up over here. Your back rise wants to come and wrap to the front. It's longer than the front rise. It is one of the reasons pants are so hard to measure. Like if you have a pair of pants that you really like and you're trying to measure it or lay it down on top, the back rise is always the hardest. And same with measuring across the thigh. It's really hard to get a good, accurate measurement because the back rise is longer. But you need it to be that way because you have a booty. If you've never made pants before, it's such a great beginning pattern to do it on. You could zigzag all your seams too. You don't need to do French seams. Oh, awesome, Carol. What do you think of doing less pins? Does it make you nervous, or are you feeling like, oh, I can do this? There's nothing wrong with using pins at all. I use them. I just think I'm at that point where it's like they feel a little bit like they hold me back sometimes, and I have less flexibility. All right, so side seam. Feels funny because of the pocket. It's like 2 layers up here and then more at the bottom. I want that to line up at the top there, because that's how it should be. That's where the seam line is. That's a little wider than I need it to be. Since the pants are looking a little big though. You get carried away using them. Well, you know, you can always just keep using them, but you don't have to take them out once you've sewn past them. You can take them out at the very end, take them all out at once. That way, I feel like pins are really, really helpful, you know, especially for like anchor points or guides, you know, like, okay, I need to get to that point. Like that pin is an absolute must. You can even color code your pins. Like, okay, I know the center and side seam pins need to be right there, right? So all the others can adjust in between as I'm going. But if you have to like adjust as you're going, then it is taking you longer, and you may end up not letting the fabric kind of tell you where it wants to go, because sometimes it kind of knows better, you know. But that's awesome. I've definitely seen over pinning before, but I don't think there's anything wrong with that either, you know. If that makes you feel good, then do it. Like I say, we don't do this because it's easier or faster, right? So just enjoy it. Do what makes you feel the most relaxed. That's the most important thing. I think like anytime you're dreading going back to your project, that's just not a good sign. You know, I've had those knitting projects like that, and plenty of sewing projects like that. Like all the time I have sewing projects like that to this day. Like the closet organizer was kind of getting there. I'm like, why did I promise this as a free pattern before I finished it, you know? But that's just how I am. I'm an idea person, and I'm a maker, and I just charge ahead. And then I'm like, oh yeah, I got to do all the like work for it, which I actually don't mind doing. It's just that I'll have another idea, and I really want to like act on that again too. Okay, so we now have our side seam and our inseam on one side. This looks so clean. Look at that. Looks really nice. I'm glad I did that. And then I just do this one side seam, and then we put the waistband on. And the cuffs. There's only piping on the cuffs of this, so it's a really great trial spot, right? Pretty easy. Just remember to adjust your inseam on these pants before you cut things out, because once you put the cuffs on, you're probably not going to want to shorten or lengthen your pants. Well, you can't lengthen, you know, at that stage, but you're not going to be able to really shorten them very easily without having to take the cuff off, you know. So before you put that cuff on, or before you cut out your pants, check your inseam. I made my cuff a little bit narrower than theirs, more like the pair of pants that I have. I'm just trying to keep that as straight up and down as possible when I'm lining up this French seam, because I don't really want it to do this. I don't want one side to slide this way or that way, because then you'll see torquing in the seam allowance, and it also won't line up on the seam line, and that's still really important. Just because I've sewn it once for the first pass of the French seam doesn't mean I'm done lining it up, because I haven't sewn it yet on the actual seam line. And I talked a little bit about that in that video I have, that really short one on lining up your seams and why that's important. Because you don't line up your raw edges, you line up your seam line. And it's a really subtle but really important distinction. And often why people have things that don't sew together, because they're lining up the raw edge point to point or edge to edge, when really they need to line up where the seam line is. This looks good. Okay. My elastics will cinch these in, so that's kind of great. All right, so it's my elastic. I'm gonna move some stuff out of the way here. I haven't even looked at that, so let's move that. So one of the things I did, you guys probably saw on my Instagram that I put some of my bias through the binding machine to make a draw cord. I know, that's cheating, huh? But it's so much fun, and I love doing it occasionally, just kind of running it through there without having to bind something as I go. It felt pretty sneaky. I pinned that to this because I don't want to forget to use it, though, because I actually do want a little draw cord. So that means that what I needed was a buttonhole. So I put a buttonhole at the center front, and if I overlap this at the seam line, which is about right here, it'll be like that. And that's where my draw cord's going to poke out, and I'm just going to attach to the side seam. So I'm going to finish the edge of my binding right now, because see, this is the rub with my binding machine. People think it's like this magical solution, but I can only just go from point A to point B. I can't do something like, say I have a circle and I want to bind around that circle. Well, when I go on, I have to kind of go on at an angle and then come on around. And then when I come here, that little tail is sitting there, right? So I cut the tail off and then I can bind over it. But now when I have to go off, I'm going to have a tail that's going to look raw on the edge like this. So the only way to deal with that is I take out a little bit, and then I'm going to fold under the end. And you just wouldn't do this in production. So we don't do it for everything. We only do it for some things. We only do it for like the top of a pocket or the top of, God, we do a lot of pockets with it. Do we do anything that's not a pocket? Maybe a little like a draw cord opening. Things where when we go on and off of the fabric, that little edge is going to be taken care of some other way. And it's kind of hard to explain without showing you, but I don't have a camera on that machine. That's the one that's behind me. It's identical to this machine. It's just older. Same kind of style of machine. I just have an attachment on it that I never take off. Like that we do so much binding here, I have that luxury of having one whole machine set up for it. And it took me a while to get there, but once I got there and once I got it set up, it's been like a dream ever since. So, and you know, buying one of these machines used is pretty affordable. You know, like I have one out there that could be used for this that I probably can't even sell for $300 because it's just, you know, it's just at that age. Works great, but doesn't have the automatic thread clipping and stuff like that. So you can find machines like that and then put an attachment on it. Okay, so I'm just tucking in the ends there. And now I'm going to secure all that. I just lost it. There we go. Get that back in there. Really want those raw edges to get tucked all the way under there. Oh man, I just sewed a fuzzy in there and it's black. Okay, so let me push that back in there. Look, see, there's a fuzzy. Dang it, I don't know where that came from. Like I have a friend that will sometimes bring a quilt, like a simple quilt by, and she'll say, will you bind it for me? Like, that is so bad. And she's like, I don't care. Because then it's kind of a narrow binding for a quilt. And it most certainly could fall off the edge as I'm going. And she'll have to do this. She'll have to like back it out and, you know, finish the edges. That didn't go too well, but let's try the other one now. And you can get binding attachments for your home machine that you can just take on and off, you know? Like, you can totally do that. They have for sergers, too. And they do all kinds of things. Like mine, I specifically showed them what I wanted and learned the language of what they call what. because I wasn't sure. Like, I knew what I called it. I knew what Home Sewing called it. I knew what places I had worked called it. But sometimes people call things differently. So it's good to, like, understand, like, are we talking about the same thing? Because there is a lot of different ways to do binding, and you don't realize it until you're talking to someone else over the phone without visual aid. So mine is double fold. That's a very standard term because it's folded on both sides, clean finished on both sides. And then I say I want it to finish 3/8 of an inch. And then I assumed that 1 3/8 inch bias would work in there. They kind of confirmed that. And that's what we do. And then when I got the machine, I was only hand cutting binding at the time, and it wasn't working that great. And so I took a chance, found a binding contractor, sent out my bias. It's worked like a dream ever since because it was more uniform. We can do hand binding in there now. It just doesn't go over our seams very well, like when we seam it together. Did I just talk way too much about my binding machine? I get a lot of questions about it, and people question me about it. It makes me feel like I'm really special, but it's not a special thing. It's just because we don't see a lot of things like that, and people don't know they exist. It was $35 for that attachment, you guys. Yes, exactly, Carol. Yeah, so it's really common to see cover stitch binding on knits. And so the top on the outside of the garment is folded under and then double needle stitched down. And on the underside, it looks like serging, like one layer not folded, serged, and then cover stitched. Like, it looks like serging. It's not serging, but it looks like serging. And that's the under stitching of the 2 double needles that sew it on the top. And once you get the hang of that, Carol, you'll love it. But yeah, there is a little bit of a like meet and greet with it. And you know, I think you might play with your differential, and the differential is the knob that will adjust, like if it is stretching the top layer of fabric or the under layer fabric. Like differential just means that one layer is going through at a different rate than the other. So mine has it so I can either do the top one scrunched together, or no, not the top layer. How should I say that? Just play with your differential if you have one, because it may make the difference. Because when you use that cover stitch foot, typically you're using it on something that stretches. It's been cut on the cross grain of the knit, and so like a rib or an interlock, and it's stretchier than what you're attaching it to. And so you might want to just play around with that, you know. So, okay, so I haven't even cut my buttonhole yet. I'm a little nervous too, just because I want to make sure that I cut down the width of my waistband a little bit, because I'm using like 1 inch elastic, and the pattern calls for 1.5, and so they say, you know, pick what you have. I have this here, so this is why I'm using it. And so I can cut this down further by quite a bit. There's also 5/8 in seam allowance. So I kind of want like a really tight casing on my thing. So I'm going to do my best to do that. And I think what I'm going to do is cut off, let's see, maybe I'll do like a 1/2 inch seam. And I'll cut 1/4 inch off this edge. Maybe 5/8 inch off the other, like that. I'm committed now, huh? It would probably be better to do my rotary knife, but I'm almost already done. Or not, I'm not almost done, but I've already done this. It's fine. And I'm just doing this because I like a really tight casing on my waistband. I don't like my elastic to be loose in there. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and you know, Carol, like, you'll figure it out, and then you'll switch fabrics, and then you'll have to like play with it a little bit more. But eventually you'll figure it out. And then the other thing to do is just fake it too. If you have a cover stitch on your on your serger, you can fake it pretty easily too, you know. I used to have to make those for clients, prototypes that looked like they were made in a factory. And they had to look like they were made in a factory, you know. What the heck? Did I cut the wrong side? Why is that so? Okay. I would definitely want to make sure I get the same width. Yeah, that works. Yeah. Why is it so different down here? I didn't do a good job cutting, it looks like. Look at that. I was getting really close to the end of my fabric. Maybe that's why. Maybe that was a that looks like a non-cut edge. It's probably what's going on there. Just making sure it's straight. It's not quite straight, so I'm just kind of trimming it. Just like that. All right. Let's see here. Don't fall off the machine, elastic and draw cord. I gotta make this one the same. I knew I didn't position the button exactly the same, but I didn't think it was that far off. I don't want it to get too small because I remember I'm wanting a nice tight casing, and I don't have much room to like fix it if I get it wrong. I'd have to go to smaller elastic. Do I really not need to trim this edge? I'm going to take a chance with that. All right, I'm going to sew my center front seam 5/8 inch and my center back. And I'm just going to finger press this open. So you'll notice like I'm setting this up so that I don't have to feed the elastic through the casing like with the safety pin like you do. And the reason I'm doing that is I don't like the finishing of that very much. So I'm going to, hopefully I can pull this off in front of you guys and I won't make it look like I'm doing something harder. So if I were sewing this just with my serger, this is what I would do. I would have cut the waistband as one with the pant. I wouldn't have had a separate casing. And then what I would have done was, this was my waistband. See, the reason that you do want a separate waistband is because you have pockets, but you don't have to do that. You could just make this all taller, including your pocket, and then fold it over. Just be a little bit thick right there. That would be like the quick and dirty way to do it. And then I would sew this into a circle. I would divide it into like proportionally for the, especially like the center front and center back, like in half. One here, and then I would line that up and I would serge it on directly onto the pants. And as long as you are not stretching the elastic, like bending your needle of your serger, it's going to sew like a dream. The serger's made to do that. It's made to sew through things like this. And then all I would do then, once it was serged directly on there, is I would turn it over and top stitch it down. Done. So it's like a two-step process. So easy, so clean, and guess what? Your elastic won't like twist ever, and it's all done, and it's just very clean and secure, and it's taut, and I really like that. So I'm going to try and do it like the way they do it here. This is all-in-one waistband. There's no seam right here. But do you see how nice and clean that is and how nice and tight? I really like that. They have a machine that does this. Like, no one's sitting there doing this. They just, like, give it the elastic, give it the pant, it feeds in, and it does it, and it's just this magical thing. So imitating it's not going to be exactly the same thing, but we're going to try. So I'm going to double check that my waistband is actually going to match here. It's nice to know that before you start. And if I go from seam line to seam line, it looks like we're good. And so I think what I could do is I could do this from the inside to the outside so that I know I'm going to get a nice looking seam, you know. And then it would mean me sewing this right side to wrong side, coming around, and then turning it under and top stitching it down on top of the elastic. I think I might do that because then I know I'm going to nail it, you know. So first I'm going to sew this right side to wrong side. I'm going to line up the center seams. What I got going on here? So I know that I want my serging to, my buttonholes to be on the front side. So I just kind of winged those buttonholes, you guys. Like, I just kind of looked at something and was like, I want this to be about this far apart. All right, so I'm going to do this at a 1/2 inch seam allowance. I'm going to move this out of the way so it doesn't fall off the back. Put my pants up here. Oh, and I should have put my pants through that, just like that. Make sure I get it all nice and straight up and down. And this is just sew this to this smooth. There's no gathering, no easing. So just make sure that you're kind of on point when you get to those side seam notches and things. I kind of had trouble figuring out which was the front and the back of the waistband when I added the buttonhole. So my notches, now that I've cut them off too, they might not have matched anyway. I may have put my buttonhole on the front waistband. The waistband was symmetrical. It didn't matter. Okay, so which way did I press my rise? I pressed it this way when I sewed it into the crotch seam. So that's how I'm going to line it up at the top. Seam to seam. That matches perfectly. Yay. I'm going to push my side seam towards the back. I knew I just ran out of bobbin, but I am ready for that. I knew this would be a 2 bobbin project. I was ready. I already had one up on the machine. I think like when you're first learning to sew, you sew a lot of elastic waistbands. Am I right? It's like you kind of can't get away with it. If you don't want to do a zipper or button opening, elastic is the last, you know, hurdle, and it's less daunting, and then you end up getting really good at it. So it's actually been a while. I don't sew a lot of elastic pants because, I don't know, we don't really wear those every day. So it's been a while for me. I've actually never sewn it this way before. I would always use my serger. Once I had a serger, I just did it that way, and it was so fast. And I will tell you, if you end up serging your elastic to your pant, be careful with the pins, okay? I would use chalk if you can. I would just pin the points, like if you can pin your front and back elastic, like divide your elastic in half, pin one of those spots to the front, one at the back, and then kind of pull your pants to match the side seams, hold that, pin those sections. Put the pin away from the edge you're going to sew, because if you nick one of those pins with your blade of your serger, that's a $35 mistake, easy. Yes, I do know that firsthand. That's the one thing about sergers that they need eventually is a new blade. They need a more, you know, like this, I don't know why, but the needles aren't as finicky about being replaced. Okay, so now I have my waistband to the front. It's gonna look like that. So I think I can commit to cutting these now. I just use my seam ripper. And then I always pull all these little threads and I cut them off right now. Because isn't it the way that you do your really nice shirt, your buttonholes, and then you have all these little like threads coming off? You just need to get rid of it and they won't come back now that you've finished the edge with the zigzag stitch. It's so annoying. I just poked my seam ripper out in that spot. That way I know I won't go through the end. I think I've only done that one time, but that one time was a bummer. Sometimes you just, the tension releases and you just go surging forward by accident. Alrighty. Got a thread poking through there. It's gonna look okay. Okay, so my elastic is right here. I'm going to sew it in a circle, and I recommend double stitching it a few times. You want it really nice and secure. And don't go too close to that edge because that edge could unravel a little bit. Ooh, you have an elastic band foot. Oh, right, because you can do an elastic meter. Hey, Rebecca, how's it going? I'm making jammy pants. Yeah, you can do that, like especially something where you're gathering it up. You can put an elastic through an elastic foot, and it's I call it an elastic meter. I know that's probably not what you call it. I can't think of what you call it, but yeah, those are really handy. All right, so I'm going to mark my side seam here. And I'm just going to attach my draw cord right now. I'm just going to like line it up with this side seam here. Here's my pocket. There's my side seam. And I'm going to stitch it to the back. I'm just going to tack it down for now. I'm going to tack it better later. I just don't want to forget it. It's going to get a lot of tugging, you know, if I use it. Probably won't much, but, you know. So I'm going to feed it through the buttonhole right here. Like that. See that? That's all I need to do. And I'm going to do this side now. What are you working on, Rebecca? Are you working? It's my side seam. Once I'm all done, I'm going to stitch through the side seams of my elastic, like all the way through all layers like that. So that'll catch that in again. I'll make sure of it. Okay. So now here's my elastic. I don't really need to make sure that my elastic is going in there at the right, oh, okay, Rebecca, like stretch amount. I might, well, let me see how tight I made my waistband here. I'm going to stitch it like that, and actually I might. Because I want to stitch through my elastic. And see, look how nice that's going to look. Just like that. I hope this works. I mean, I measured my elastic, you know. So yeah, let's measure. Do it like we would on a serger. So I'm going to measure center. And we're going to use chalk if I can find it. Yeah, it's right here. You could use a pen. You don't have to have chalk. You can use a pen so it doesn't rub off. Right? And then what I'm going to do is, so this is how I would do it on my serger, like how I would figure out where it goes. So let's just mark this by, we'll pin this one here. And we'll pin this one here. I'm just going to pin it behind the seam allowance there. That, sorry if I'm not showing you. The center there, like this. Okay, and now I'm going to stretch my elastic. Here, I'll just do this one side first. Let me have my pins ready too. So we'll hold this one here. Oh, so it's going to be kind of hard to stretch this elastic this much. I see how it is. It's barely going to stretch that far. Okay, so it's about right there. And these are just guides, you know? And now I'm going to mark this side with this chalk mark. So I don't have to do that stretching thing again. Let's hope my elastic is going to stretch enough. I have other elastic, and maybe I want to look at that. Let's see. Oh yeah, that'll work. And that does look pretty good. Okay, that was a lot easier. I thought maybe it wouldn't stretch that far. All right, I'm going to start at the center back so I can kind of get my sea legs under me and hide all my weird stuff at the back. So, I'm going to get rid of this pin. I'm going to pull that down pretty tight like this, and then I'm going to top stitch it down. Just like that. I'm going to go a little past my seam so there's not quite the pressure to stitch through the elastic. Alright, I got it going, got my pants up on the machine, and then this is my next target right here. So I'm going to kind of hold it there. This. Now my needle, I stopped with my needle down in the machine. I'm not pulling on that needle because the presser foot is, if I lifted up my presser foot, I'd be pulling on the needle. But the presser foot's pressure is tight enough and strong enough that it's holding it in place as I pull on it. If you need to adjust the pressure of your presser foot, typically that is what this is right here on your machine. But a lot of newer home machines don't have it right here. So look in your book. And I will say, like, if you get the option when you're shopping for a sewing machine, they do tend to encase a lot of your adjustments now and make it so that it looks very user-friendly. They'll even tell you maybe sometimes you don't have to ever adjust the tension. There's nothing wrong with adjusting tension. I don't know why that this is so scary, because usually it just points to something like you need to change your needle, you need to wind your bobbin tighter, you need to thread your bobbin correctly, thread your machine correctly. Those are usually all the things. Like if there's something wrong with your machine, you're probably going to have other hints as well. So if you can buy a machine where you know where the pressure of your presser foot is adjusted, I totally recommend doing that. Because I have had a machine, like my current one right now, it's really hard for me to adjust that. And it kind of bugs me because I really rely on how hard I can press on the fabric. I'm a puller, you guys know that. And so while I'm pulling, I'm going to pull back here as well to keep this all nice and straight. And so that my machine is not getting any of the tension of the pulling. Definitely don't want to pull on the needle. That's not good. that leads to issues and can potentially serious ones. So I'm just making sure I'm keeping my elastic kind of tucked behind my seam allowance just because I can. And then I can also see my line of stitching that I'm trying to cover up. And I am stitching on the outside of my jammies, so, you know I'm going to make it. I'm going to get rid of this thread right here. I don't want that to cause me problems. I have a few threads from when I started the seam. Okay. And see, look at, there's my yellow line, it needs to go there. So like that. I'm going to hold it like this. Pull this over. My hands are kind of doing a lot right now, but hey, we're like 3 steps away from being done, you know, so we got this. Sometimes it's always those finishing steps that are always the most finicky. That's looking really good. See that? I'm happy with this choice. Okay, so I'm getting to my draw cord area. I don't want to accidentally stitch my draw cord, otherwise what's the point of it? I'm going to adjust all this like this. I'm going to pin it like that right through all of it. Oh, I see what I did here. Oh, I'm glad I saw that. Okay, so I actually do want my draw cord to be stitched on the front side. Do you see why? It has to twist onto the top of the elastic. Of course, right? Rebecca. Yeah, well, I know people really like how-tos that follow the directions, but I am not following the directions. There's nothing wrong with the directions at all. I just want a certain look for mine. So I'm going to take out my little draw cord. Like, there's no draw cord in the directions, and so I added a buttonhole to the waistband, and I'm clean finishing them the way I prefer, which is to the outside so that I know that I'm going to nail it, right? Okay, so let's stitch that down to the front. This stitching is going to get lost in the gather folds anyway. I do want it to be secure. Okay, there we go. There's my little stitching. I'm going to get rid of some of these little extra threads so that it's not too noticeable. Because if you were doing really dark pants, it kind of would be a little bit noticeable. Let's fix this one right now because it's really easy to do right now. Another good reason we started on the back, because I didn't want to like have to deal with anything new or different until I was kind of getting the hang of the stitching. I try and make it as easy as possible for myself, you know. I mean, I know I just made this harder too, but I know my draw cord's probably twisted in there, but I'm going to fix that. That's not a problem. I can do that whenever. I'm kind of hoping that once that it's kind of taut in there, it'll want to probably stay not twisted, you know, so. All right, let's resume. Here we go. Okay, now of course I did twist it again. So let me just rethread it. Good to check now. Like, I feel like I'm the type of person that before, it's like I don't want to know so I don't look. Don't be that person. I always got myself into trouble by being that kind of person. Why isn't this tip? Wait a minute. Did I put the wrong tip in there? Oh well, I'll fix that in a second. That's so funny. I did that. Okay, so let's make sure. Yeah, I think we're okay there. Okay, there we go. So that's the elastic stretching, so it's going to go like that. It's like not stretched. All right. Make sure I don't take out any of these threads right now. I don't like immortalizing threads, you know me. All right. Okay, put my pants back up there. Of course, I just yanked out my pin of where I want this to be. But let's get it all set up anyway. So, back on track. Going to pin this at the center front. This. This. Are you still here, Rebecca? I picked up 2 of those pillowcase kits for the campfire victims. Is that pretty straight? I haven't opened them yet. Is it straightforward, the pattern? I don't know what the pattern is. I don't know what they're supposed to look like. I should have asked Grace since I was there, but then I forgot and I left. Okay. Just going to kind of grab it there. Turn that under. Just turn it under that edge. Don't want to get any torquing either. You could pin this, you guys. Would not be a bad idea. I'm just making sure that it's straight and not getting torqued. Oh, we need to talk about our sew along, huh? I keep thinking my pattern didn't arrive, but I forgot to download, so I gotta get that thing printed. Otherwise, I'll be the one that's like, I'm late. But I need to post about that as well, because maybe people who can't watch live want to know the details and talk about it as well. Because we're going to make those Mountain View, right? Mountain View pull-on jeans by Itch to Stitch. We could do any pants you guys want. If you don't have that pattern, it's fine. You can do a different one. And we're going to do it starting sometime in January. January is going to be kind of a kooky month for me. So I think like the longer we wait to start, the better for a lot of us. So that's good. That's good for me too. Okay. It's looking good. And I'm going to stitch along that top edge too. And it's going to be really tailored. All right. So we have our next marker. Where's our side? Here's our side seam. Making sure I don't twist my elastic. Okay, I'm going to put that in there like that. I'm going to turn this under. Just like that. Kind of give myself that next anchor in that guide. Oh, okay. I've made a bunch of pillowcases before, so I think I can just, as long as I can, I just need to turn in a pillowcase, right? I bought 2 of them. I saw them as I was walking out the door. I was like, oh, that looks good. I can do that. That's something I can do. All right, you see my draw cord sneaking out there, so I'm just going to pull on it like that. Lest you think it's torquing, it's just because the elastic's trying to fight back. But once I do this, you can tell. I'm trying not to let my machine fall off the edge there. It wants to because this is so much thicker over here, you know, and this, I'm on this little edge down here. You might find doing something like this with like a zipper foot might be a little easier. My zipper foot would not be, it's just too narrow. And my zipper foot also doesn't have it so that the needle is on one side or the other of the foot. It's just a really narrow foot, so there's not a lot of purchase onto the fabric. It's not a traditional zipper foot. Home stretch. Look at that. I'm quite pleased with how this came out. Let's hope they fit. Okay, here we go. Last little bit. Usually the easiest part, because now you have less stretch. And just so you know, like, this doesn't always work. Like, if you're trying to stretch too much fabric into the elastic, you may have some trouble. Oops. Okay, thanks, Rebecca. All right, let's get rid of this pin here. What do you think? Okay, I'm going to sew along the top edge now. I want that tailored look. It's a lot of gathers. I'm not going to start on the front. What am I thinking? I'm going to start at the back. I'm going to hide any of my back tags back here. This is easy. You've already done the hard work. Don't skip this if you're afraid of doing it. I've got a little bit of torquing right here. I can feel my draw cord through here too. I want to untwist it a little bit. I don't think actually it's torquing. It's my draw cord pushing up. You see that? Right there. That's my draw cord. I'm going to push it down. I want to make sure I'm not going to catch the draw cord there. This looks pretty good for my first time trying this without instructions and winging it. I could have made this casing even tighter. Yeah, one more hand would be helpful, right? You know that hand wouldn't do what I told it to do, though. And, you know, pins. Pins would be your other hand. Or clips. I could have used clips. I'm just not used to using those yet, so I forget about them. Bespoke pajamas. Bespoke means custom, so yeah, I guess they are custom. All right, let's fix it. Look at this one's finished. I didn't realize I picked the edge that wasn't finished. Let's finish that right now. Okay, I'm just going to turn this under, and then we have our cuffs, and that's it. Pretty quick, guys. I always say that, don't I? That DOP kit was harder. Wasn't hard, it was a lot of steps. Especially when I had to do the bespoke version of that. I like that. It's a classier way of saying Jeremy went off, went off the instructions. Okay, I'm going to look at my little threads here, get rid of some of those. I don't need a ribbon to denote the front or the back. I like that too, because sometimes pull-on pants don't have any indicators. Those are pretty cute. So now we have our cuffs right here. The back cuffs are longer than the front, so they're really easy to tell apart. And I'm going to sew them into a circle. I do a 5/8 inch seam. I know I need to use that 5/8 inch seam because since we did a French seam, I probably did it a little bit wider. Now, bespoke is a very British. Wait, who's from? Someone here is from Great Britain. That's a very yeah. Helen isn't bespoke a very British term? It means custom or tailored. You see it mostly in men's clothing, but it is very much a hipster word right now. I haven't watched that show. I actually had to look it up. I was like, why is everyone using the word bespoke? That is such a old term. I realize it's just got a revitalization. That's all. Not gonna lie, Rebecca, my plaid flannel may end up becoming pajama bottoms. Oh my gosh, what did I just do? Oh my god, I just sewed the backs to the backs and the fronts to the fronts. Oh my god. I have more than one leg. And they're the same, almost the same exact size as each other. Thank you very much. Oh my gosh. All right, here's my mistake of the day. Still a mistake. Why did I just put the fronts to the fronts? This is when I really wish I could replace my face with an emoji face. Alrighty. So much faster to sew than rip out. That's awesome, Rebecca. I'm having trouble keeping up on any TV right now. I just watched the series Godless. I really liked that. And let's see. And it's kind of made me into Westerns. Not, you know, like I grew up watching a lot of Westerns. My grandma was really into Westerns. And then my dad, same thing. He really liked The Rifleman. So I watched some of it. But my grandma, man, she loved the show Bonanza. Yeah, Bonanza. So we watched a lot of that. And I don't know, I wasn't into it for a really long time. I don't go to Western movies. I read the book that's considered the very first Western ever written. It's called The Virginian. So good, you guys. And there's even a chicken with a really great personality in it. It's such a good book. It's so subtle, and it is really interesting, and it seems more historically accurate because it was written close to the time that it happened. So it's kind of cool. And I think who's the author? Owen Wister? Something like that. All right, one back, one front, one for each leg. There you go. Never happened. We won't talk about it. I can't believe I did that, though, still. I'm not going to talk about it, though, right? Never happened. Oh, yeah. What's it? There's like, I don't even want to spoil the twist with the chicken. It's kind of cute. There's a little cute side story with it. Yeah. But I recommend getting it if you find one with like footnotes, because it explains some of the language as you're going. I used to be in a book club. It was awesome. For like 12 years until I moved here. Alrighty, back on track. I'm going to finger press my side seams there. And my fabric's all pre-washed, so I could actually wear these tonight. Blazy, oh, I haven't seen that since I was a kid, Olivia. Wow. It's funny because my mom has a good point. She's like, I really like that Godless is a limited series. I mean, she really loved it, but in a way, it's kind of nice that it's limited. So now I don't have like season after season to keep up on. But when it's really good, you do kind of want another season, you know. And it started making me like search out other Westerns. Okay, so it's pretty easy to tell the front from the back because see, the front is shorter, right? And you'll be able to tell on your pants as well. So I'm going to do these the way where I sew from the inside to the outside so that I don't have to worry about catching the underside. It's just the way I like to do things, you guys. I'm not going to iron it quite yet because I'm going to need to when I go to the other side. So I'm going to sew from the inside. So right side of the cuff to the wrong side of the pant. I always push my seams to the back of the pant. I'm going to leave my cuff seam open. Kind of tempted to push it to the back, but I'm actually not going to. And a quick check will make sure, see, it's all going to line up just fine. I'm going to sew it from the inside of the circle so it's a little easier. And then we get to do our fake piping. Okay, so this is the back, so I'm going to press this seam to the back. I'm going to make sure that seam lines up. So now I can put my piping on. Actually, I could do it now. I'm going to do it now. So I could have done that all in one step, but I think that's a little bit too much, you know. Okay, so I'm going to pre-cut this piece of bias. Like this. Measuring it. I don't want to stretch it because I actually know it's going to shrink a little differently than my pants because it's not pre-washed, and the grain line on this is like this. So that's the way it's going to shrink, like this and like this, not like this or like this. So it is kind of a weird thing. I'm going to sew it into a circle so right sides together. I'm going to double check it before I do that by just laying it here on, I'll lay it on the inside since that's where it's going to go. I'm doing this in a really cumbersome way, by the way. God, I can't do it this way. I'm just gonna lay it on here. It doesn't matter if it's on the inside, it's stretchy. I'm gonna lay it like this, lay it on here. That way I can trim off any extra, but that's fine right there. I don't need to trim any of that off. I'm just gonna take a little bit more than a 1/2 inch seam. All right. I'm gonna press that open, and now I'm gonna press it like this. You could iron this. So I'm just gonna press my bias in half like this, and I'm gonna stitch it down right along the raw edge, and I'm not gonna stretch it. You guys probably thought I was going to use my binding machine for this, but there's no way I could do that. It would be a little bit too thick, you know. I only used it for that draw cord that I cheated on. I figured I was allowed to cheat since it's not part of the directions. Really don't want this to get stretched out, so I'm just handling it really gently. But this will also make it like a stay stitch. Get rid of all these threads here. They're not too bad. I don't want those to poke out. So there's one of my biases. And then I can just line this up like this. And that much right there is going to hang out. See? And I want to line it up to the inseam, which is this one. So that's good. So I could have done this to the pant before I put the cuff on, you know. I'm stitching it into the seam allowance because it doesn't really matter quite yet. It's not the final seam. I'm kind of glad this actually is a little bit big, because maybe easing it in there for once. Like usually bias, you kind of gently stretch it as you attach it to things because you're doing it for a different reason. But this might add a little bit of extra so that when it shrinks, maybe it won't shrink so bad. It'll just fit. All right, so now I'm ready for my cuff. Basically, I'm just gonna hem it over that, like this. See? And that'll be my piping. I just need to go up to this stitching edge, okay? So let's get the other one ready, and then I'll iron them both. Okay, so our other cuff is right here. Let's cut the bias before we put the cuff on. Up to the seam line right there, fold in half. My bias is all twisted. It's really bugging me. Okay. So this is how my bias comes. It's on a little roll. Some of the rolls are quite large, actually. My new binding supplier, I didn't know he would do that, so they barely fit on my machine. All right, that's ready. So here, I'll attach this now. I think that doing this first is not necessarily easier, but it's going to give me a better visual aid if I attach this to the pant first, because then when I put this onto here, I'll be able to see the seam, the first seam that I sewed with when I go to do the final step. So first I'm just going to tack this shut along the edge. Now if I had cord, I'd lay it in here, use a zipper foot, and I would stitch right up against it as close as I can. You don't really need to stitch right up against it on this first pass because you don't want that stitching to show later on. Cording is pretty easy, to be honest. It can just get away from you in that you really want it nice and tight in there. So buying the right gauge piping or cording is important for that. You want a pretty narrow one for this. I didn't actually see on the instructions how much you need or what gauge to get. So I would, if you have anything with piping on it, or you know you're at the store, get smaller than what you think you need. I have some here, but it's really chunky because it was meant for the belt for the Rita shirt dress. Okay, so I'm going to, which one's my inseam? This one is my inseam right here. And this is the back. So I'm going to press this seam like that. I'm going to line up my seam to here. I'm just going to attach this first. Yeah, and I do apologize I don't have piping, you guys. I didn't even think about it. I actually thought I had some. I looked everywhere for it. It's like, I know I'll probably find it now. I wonder if I used it for something. Not for piping, but something else. It could have just gotten tangled up and I said, this is out of here. You know, I'm a little bit brutal when it comes to getting rid of stuff. If it's in my way. Okay, so now let's attach our cuff. We're going to do right side to wrong side. And let's see. That's the front, that's the front. Just like that. We are so close to being done with these, you guys. Pretty quick, huh? . 'Cause So because I'm attaching this in this order this time, I'm going to have a nice, I'm going to be able to see that stitching line on the bias when I go to do the last stitch. You know, that'll be great. That'll help. Right side to the wrong side. I'm not doing the right seam allowance right now though. I need to do a little bit bigger. I may need to go around this again because I didn't really get the seam allowance quite right. It's a lot of layers. It looks a little confusing even to me. I'm pulling this cuff under here to line it up. That's what I'm doing. And then I'm stitching it a 1/2 inch seam. And see, look at, I'm not anywhere near a 1/2 inch seam there, so I'm going to go back and stitch that. The binding was confusing me a little bit. All right, there we go. I'm just getting rid of that. I don't like the way it looks. Well, my seam didn't stay open right there, so let's fix that. I always have to turn my iron a couple times to get it to turn on, you know? Alrighty. So. I looked really closely at my pants, and I don't know how they did this, but if you look really closely at mine, they did this before they did their side seam. You could totally cheat and do that. It would be easier because then they did this all flat. You see that? And I actually looked to see like where they did their last seam because I looked at this really closely to see like did they sew it the way I do, and look, their seam is right there on the inside, so I can tell. And I was like, and I went to this side, I'm like, wait, their seam is on there too. So they may have done something kind of crazy. They probably have a machine that just puts this on, and they sewed this cuff right sides together to this edge, then turned it, which is really tricky to do. Like you'd have, it's kind of like doing like the yoke on a archer, you know, like how I'd sew and turn that through the yoke. It's kind of like that. Pretty tricky stuff. They have a good machine for that. All right, I'm gonna see here. Okay, I'm going to turn it to the right side and then get it lined up to be able to iron correctly. If I iron it pretty good, I probably won't need any pins, or maybe just like a few guiding pins. So here's how my cuff looks like on the right side right now, because I'm going to do this from the right side, just like that. Maybe I'll iron it afterward. I don't think I need to iron it before. So I did make my cuff a little narrower. I'm going to fold this so that it's like a half, this edge is a 1/2 inch past this seam here. So I kind of, you know, I kind of want that seam there. I'm actually going to put it in. Why not, right? I'm going to stitch along that first seam again. So I have that visual cue on the binding on where I need it to fold to. I'm going to make this easier for myself. There we go. See, now I can see where it goes. That'll be easier. I'm going to get this one where I want it. This like seam here. That'll be cute. It's not really a heavy contrast, this piping. It's very subtle. It is nice that you have a cuff seam on each end rather than it being all one piece. It uses less fabric that way if you need to actually kind of like piece it together. But also you have a guide in both spots, both out seams, both inseam and outseam, you know? We like guides. Okay. Now I'm going to kind of do this. And then it kind of wants to fold where it should fold. Get rid of threads as you see them. Has anyone sewn piping before? Have you ever done it for anything? It'd be kind of overkill on like kids' jammies, but at least it would be a smaller area to try, you know? It's quite a bit more for the top. You actually do it for the collar tipping and the pocket and the sleeve cuffs just like you're doing on the pants. If you guys make me, I'll do it. I can do that on Saturday. I always pulled pin perpendicular, I don't know what I was trying to say there, to the seam. Okay, I don't like that right there. It's that little... This edge right here has been sewn 3 or 4 times, so it's a little stretched. This edge hasn't. It's pretty obvious now. That way, when I pin perpendicular, I don't have to take out the pins as I go. Frees up my hands. It also pokes me a little bit, I will admit. There we go, that's better. You don't actually have to have piping to have that little hit of contrast. Oh yeah, Rebecca, you did the piping? Yeah, on a pillow, I would recommend actually filling it with the piping, not cheating like this. Because it'll look a little funny, it'll look a little flat. I have seen it like that and it's fine, you know, it's like a nice color hit. But it is a little nicer with the real thing. And I agree with Closet Case, you know, they say, you know, you can buy prepackaged piping in a pinch, but making it yourself is probably going to get you the width that you want. Oh, I know, right, Ida? Yeah, that's good, Olivia. No, binding is so forgiving because it's stretchy, you know? Yeah, it's not as bad as we think. Once I have more time, I'm like really struggling for time these days. I will upload more videos, especially ones on sewing binding, like quick ones, so you don't have to like search for all my, you know, endless babble about it inside of another long video, you know, especially since my streams sometimes are a little long. I can't believe how long we were here Saturday for that portside top kit. I was like, wow, that took a little longer than I thought. Okay, I'm going to do my side seam and, my side seam and my inseam first. I pin those first, and then I'm going to do my little fluffing this. I feel like if I do this, this is the way it wants to go, so I get less torquing potential. You could even iron this edge, so then you're like, okay, everybody, we're committed. You got to stay like that. Now, another cheating method that I almost did for you guys today would be to sew this all, like if you just sewed this cuff, folded the cuff in half before you attach it to the pant, put your piping on the pant like that, and then sew the cuff to the pant right sides together, and then just finish the raw edges on the inside. Done. Quick. Top stitch. You're done. It is so high up and so acceptable to do that. Like they're pajamas, you know. But I feel like when it's pajamas, since it's not something anyone's really going to see, it's such a great place to try out techniques you're not very comfortable with, is on pajamas, right? You don't have to like go to work wearing something you're like, it's probably obvious I made this, you know? So jammies are the perfect thing. That and kids' clothes. Kids' clothes are another great place to try out techniques because you don't have to do it for very long because it's such a small garment. And, you know, there is that, you know, I think that in the back of our head, we don't want to do that on kids' clothes because we're like, oh, they're going to get stains on them, or, you know, they're going to get holes in them or whatever. But the thing is, it's a really great practice place. And don't think of it as being a single-use garment because those things get handed down, right, to other kids. And I know I loved seeing handmade, you know, clothes when people would, you know, give me hand-me-downs. I just loved seeing handmade things. It was pretty cool. And I gave tons of handmade things away myself. My mom would also make things for my daughter, like costume stuff. I still have all that. Okay. So now I'm going to turn the pant. Look how bare my pie is. I think I've been throwing away too many pins. I get lazy and I throw them away. They're like at all bent or have a snag. They're gone. They're dead to me. I'm harsh. See you later, pin. I got a big box. You didn't stay sharp or straight. Okay. I do it from the inside, right? Because it's easier. Oh, what, Olivia? Like, yeah, you get to try techniques out on something no one's going to see. You could sit here and just, like, nerd out on it to your heart's content, and they're pajamas, right? Okay, is this that is my back. This is my back, so I'm going to start right here. I'm going to sew onto my back first, and darn it, okay, these are my last two seams, you guys. All I have to do is top stitch this down. I'm going to stitch it really close as well because I don't want any of my stitching to show from the first passes. So where's my seam? This fabric, it's so hard for me to see the seam. Here it is right here. Okay. Here it is right here. I always start with my thread under my presser foot. I get a better stitch. I'm going to take out some of my pins as I go because I don't like it when they poke me later on. So I'm just edge stitching. Now, a lot of machines come with a piping or cording foot. So if you are putting on piping, you might try that. I'm pretty sure that is for making the piping. Don't quote me on that. And then if there isn't a foot for attaching this part right here, use your zipper foot. because that piping, see, it would be right under my foot right now. So obviously I can't really sew something under, like it would push my foot away from the seam, and then I would have a wiggly seam. I don't want torquing. Stop it. I'm going to try and ease this in so I don't get any torquing. Another magical use for my awl. Covers up my mistakes. I'm actually going to kind of start feeding the top edge like this because it's a little bit thick. It's not really, really thick like denim or anything like that. But there's a lot of layers here. We've got the pant, we've got 2 layers of bias, and we've got the first pass of the cuff and the last pass of the cuff. So that's 2, 4, 6 layers of fabric plus the seams. And so what's happening is the top layer is pushing away from the needle, and that will get a little bit of torquing if I'm not careful. So I'm just going to kind of push this towards it as I go. I'm not creating tucks or anything like that. I'm just making it stay where I originally started it out in the first place. And I've just learned that over the years. Like, it's nothing like some secret people don't tell you. It's just something you just kind of learn. And I think, you know, for a long time when you're first sewing, you think, why does my machine do this? What's wrong with my machine? And it's not. It's just the nature of what you got going on. And then there's the inside. See? I didn't have to worry about catching the inside at all. Doesn't matter. It's all on the outside anyway. Not bad. Okay, one more. Let's see, I want to start on my back side. That's my front, so this is it right here. Okay, right here. And with your experience in sewing, this sounds funny, you'll start learning like what your machine is doing wrong rather than what the project is making your machine do. You know, there is a difference. I'm just folding a little bit extra under. I still need to cover up that stitch, but I want more of my piping to show. Ouch. Ouch. I can't even see the pins and they're just poking me. I should learn to pin the other direction. Yeah, right, Carol? It's just a nice little detail. And you know, like, don't think of this as like, well, I'm never going to add that to my regular clothes. Why do I need to practice something kind of cool on that if I'm never going to use it? I wouldn't look at it that way. I would look at it like all these little things make you a better sewist, and they give you this experience where you start knowing how to handle fabrics better and in different ways. And so that's the way I look at it. Like, I feel like that's how I've learned how to sew mostly, is just being interested in techniques. I don't use all those techniques, but at one time or another I've tried most of them out, you know, and they just made me a better seamstress overall and helped me build that skill base, build my experience handling fabrics. Because I think that that is the biggest thing we are working on as seamsters, is handling the fabric. Because remember, you got to be nice to yourself. You're trying to tell this inanimate object to do what you want it to do. You know, you're dealing with the machine and everything. Okay. Let's look at my pants. At least I don't feel pressure that I need to try these out. I'm not going to show you me and my jammies. They feel a little big. They feel kind of big, but maybe it's just because of the fabric weight. They're really cute. There we go. Got the fake fly totally finished. Got a little thread there. That's my top stitch the edge there. And I think the only thing I'm going to do is stitch down my elastic in the seams here, just to give it more stability. Boy, it's really hard to see my seams. This one happens to be right on top of where I did that, tacked my draw cord. I'm going to do it at the center back. If I can see it, there it is. I'm kind of just doing on the back seam and the ditch, stitching in the ditch best I can. I can't really spread it out very much right now because it's been sewn so many times. There's my new bobbin right there. I'll do this right on top of the draw cord rather than lining it up with the side seam, since that's more noticeable. And this will just get lost in the folds, and it just makes your elastic more stable. I think I'll do it on the center front as well through the fly. Oh, I can't. No. I'm not going to do that because it'll fix my draw cord. I'm going to do it on the center front seam right there. Kind of in the ditch. The ditch the ditch is just the original seam, and it will kind of fluff up and kind of cover up a lot of it. And it doesn't really matter. It's like jammies, right? Under my waist, stuff like that. Under my shirt, on my waist, you know. Okay, and then here's my top. Here we go. Here's my top. So if this had been a jammy top pattern and I had sewn it initially, there'd be like little piping around the edge and stuff like that, and on the pocket here. I don't know if you can see that very well. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to stitch my facing down. I'm going to add piping to my sleeves. And you can take off if you want right now, but I am going to do that right now because I really want to wear this whole set, and I haven't been able to because I have to iron my pajamas. So I'm just going to stitch this facing down right through my, I'm going to start right here. Just going to follow the serging. Yeah, what I found was that this facing kept getting floppy and in the way, and I didn't want to wear them. So I really want to be able to treat these like jammies. Now I have to iron them. And I don't know, this is not the Carolyn pajamas, so it's nothing they did wrong or anything like that. Just I didn't know I was making jammies when I made these. So I'm getting really close to my pocket stitching there, so I'm going to be really careful. Go, I'm actually going to go from the right side. That way I know I can feel it in there. Yeah, not ideal, right? I'm going to stop right there, because otherwise I might go through my little pocket there. But I need to back stitch this right here. I didn't back stitch that. That. I have a little bit that I didn't stitch down. Big deal, right? Let's see. What else do I want to do? Okay, I wanted to take this out. What else? Nothing else really bugs me about it when I'm wearing it. So I just added a stitch right there. See? I could have ironed that better right there, but it's fine. It's not torquing or anything. So I'm going to take the stitch out, and I'm going to do fake piping underneath it. And make it, this is the other thing, is like I always have to cuff my sleeves and iron my sleeves. Like, I'm not going to do that. They're pajamas. It's fine if it's a shirt. I'm happy to do that. But at the end of the day, the last thing I want to do is iron what I'm about to wear to get cozy and relax. my machine gets tired of waiting for me, and it's like, ah, it just sets down. All right. Okay, that's one. I know that if I do this with jammy top on Saturday, I'm definitely going to read the instructions really through, and I might even try a collar. Just because after that Rita shirt, I know you guys were all laughing at me because I could not remember how to put that collar on there, and I just had sewn this stupid thing. I just sewn the dress, and then when I went to sew the shirt, like a few days later, I could not remember how the collar went together, and I was like, gosh darn it, I just did that. How do I not remember? And I was just confusing the way I used to sew it years ago, this kind of collar, and then the way they had you do it. Both our ways work, but you can't do both at the same time. So I was like going forwards, backwards, forwards, backwards. You guys were very nice. You were like, oh, no, 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 we like seeing your thought process. Like, yeah. I don't know about that. Okay, so I know where I want this to go. I ironed it earlier. Oh, I was like, wait, I just took that out. Here it is. It's still on there. Okay. And I'm just going to insert the binding underneath the fold edge there. Best I can. Okay. I'm going to lay this on here, just like that. I'm going to sew it right sides together. And I'm going to sew it into a circle, or fold it in half and sew down the edge. That's what I mean. All right. Oh, I forgot to open my advent calendar again today. Well, at least I have that to look forward to. My husband got me one. He's so sweet. Try not to stretch it. If anything, I want extra, not less on this since it's not pre-washed. Let's see. Definitely faking this. Like that, and then I'm going to stitch it down. Figuring it out how as I go. Okay. I'm going to start at the underarm seam. And I'm just going to set it in there. Just like that. And I'm going to just go for it. It's just jammies. And I'm kind of learning, you know, another way to do something retroactively. I kind of like revisiting some of my sewing, some of my makes, and kind of, see you, Rebecca? Because I, you know, like once you've been wearing them for a little bit, you kind of notice something that bugs you. Like these ginger jeans I'm wearing, like I don't know what I was thinking. Like I got so excited being close to the end that I kind of dropped the ball in the waistband matching at the front. And so I might take my waistband off and fix that. Because it's at a little bit of angle. And I didn't put my button high enough on the waistband. I don't know what I was thinking there either. I just got kind of carried away. Like you do when you're excited something's almost done. This feels like there's a lot of extra binding in there, but I think it's just because it's loose back there. Okay, there we go. This is surprisingly easy. Since I pre-ironed the cuff this morning, so it knows where it wants to go. The seam allowance of this little fake piping is really wide, so I don't really have to worry if I'm going to catch it or not. Not to mention I'm sewing really close to the edge anyway. And now I have kind of a fake piped cuff on my sleeve, just like that. So we'll do one more, and then we can call it a day. I didn't cut both at the same time, just in the off chance that one sleeve was slightly different size. There we go, right sides together. I saw one of you's in Thailand right now. Pretty cool. That's quite a vacation this time of year, right? Anyone else have holiday trips? I know one of you's going to Australia. Who is that? Where it's summer. I talk to someone regularly from Sydney. He lives in Sydney, and you know, I don't think Christmas is quite the big deal there that it can be here, you know. But I remember thinking there, because I visited there in our summertime, and it was winter there, and some parts felt wintry, but most parts did not feel wintry. And I was wondering, like, so when people decorate for Christmas, like, what do the decorations look like? Are you doing the, like, Aloha Santa thing, you know, with like surfboards and warm, like I felt like I was like being insulting by saying that, but I just was trying to come to grips with snowmen on people's lawns in the middle of summer decorating for Christmas. And I think primarily the holiday is, you know, it is Christmas there that they celebrate, you know, so you know, whatever people celebrate, you know, I'm just kind of curious because so many of our decorations reflect the season as well, you know. I just put lights up. I really like lights. I just like lights. I have lights up all year round. They're just different every season. I put star lanterns up in front of my house. I put big snowflake ones up right now. I don't typically do like Christmas specific decorations. Okay, I'm going to stop trying to fiddle with this. I'm just going to start sewing because I'm fiddling, and you know what? I know it's going to fit in there, so I just need to sew a little bit, and then a little bit, and then a little bit, and it's all going to come together. So stop fiddling with it, Jeremy. I'm going to trust my ironed edge. I'm going to trust my binding was the right length. I'm going to trust I'm not torquing it. And just get it in there. And then when I get to the end, I'll be able to see if I'm off or not. Like I'm getting a little, the binding is a little bit bigger, but that's actually a good thing because when I wash it, I know that it's going to shrink. So if I can fit it in there, which I can because it's bias. Bias is really forgiving. See, I stopped fiddling and it all worked out. You got to trust yourself sometimes, you know? All right, so let's see. Does this look more jamified? I wish I could make a mocha here at work. I miss having Ran here on Fridays for Fun Fridays. Sometimes I'm like, oh no, I don't want to eat more treats. But, you know, we always had Fun Fridays and we always had treats. Let's see. Yeah, that makes it look more like jammies, huh? It's hard to do when you're not wearing it. need to iron that better. It's fighting me. So there's my jammy top. Totally looks like jammies, right? Oh my gosh, yeah. Here's my bottoms. So the Carolyn pajama bottoms and the Rita shirt dress as a shirt where I just like cut it off at the waist seam and put a vent on the side seam. See, there's a little vent right here on the side seam. That's all I did. I didn't do anything else. I didn't change the sizing or anything. And then just now I just retroactively added the piping. And I have a pajama set. I'm excited. So, all right, guys. That's it for me today. Look for that closet organizer soon. I can really say that now. It's really coming together. It looks really good. I'm just double checking it. And now I'm kind of obsessing over and adding pictures when I know there's videos and I shouldn't do that. So, hopefully you will see it soon. I'll just email it directly to you guys. So, have a great end of your week. I'll see you Saturday, and maybe we can make this top. Let me know if that sounds good. Otherwise, maybe we'll do something else. Maybe lots of little tiny projects instead. So you can probably check out any updates on Instagram at SewSewLive. Thanks, Olivia. And I will see you guys soon. So take care. Bye.